Welcome to the Whole Enchilada, a community of high achievers that fight the status quo, rebel against mediocrity, and make life happen. Let's go. Hey, Enchilada Nation, really excited about our guest today and our conversation. I've actually been, ever since we got this scheduled, Derek, I've been like counting down the days to spend a little bit of time with you. Those of you that have been in the Enchilada Nation for some time, you may have seen Derek's episode before. He was on the podcast early on, maybe a year and a half ago, and shared some knowledge with us at that time. But he's had some really exciting changes in his world and what his passion and focus is, which I'm excited to get into today. Before I turn it over to Derek and have him talk a little bit about his background and who he is, just so you're familiar with him before we get into this conversation. As you guys know, I take my own personal growth seriously, and a big piece of that is surrounding yourself with the right people. So I've known Derek now since 2000, I think it was 2009, 2010 when we first met. And Derek's one of the guys that just demands a room. We were at the CrossFit gym that he owned that I was working out at. And I saw Derek across the room, and I was like, I got to get to know that guy. And in the last decade of us knowing each other, I will tell you that Derek has played multiple roles in my world, from coach to teammate, and most importantly, to a friend. And we've just had some really interesting experiences together. But I just really can't. I know that if I got in a bind at any given moment, I could pull Derek up on speed dial, and he would drop anything to support me. So Derek, number one, thank you for being part of my world, and excited to spend some time with you today.
Thank you. Great introduction.
So Derek, talk to us, give us like a brief intro to who you are before we get into what you're focused on right now, just to give people a little bit of your background so they know they're talking to a legit guy today.
Well, Marcus, you said do it a little bit, but you know, I struggle with a little bit, so I'll go as fast as I can. But basically, guys, I came from a very loving household. Sadly, my father passed away very young, so I was the oldest boy and had to assume that role. And I really believe I didn't used to tell the story that way, but I think it sets the theater for where this story goes. And I discovered along the way that for me to be successful, for Derek to be successful, I had to lean into the coaches that I was around. I was in sports. We didn't have money for babysitters. I was kind of in that, do you want a Christmas present or do you want heat type of a growing up? And for some of you, you may understand exactly what I'm saying. But my mother worked, before work, she was working. She was a school teacher, teaching classes after school. And as such, my babysitters, my daycare was school or sports. And in both of those, I'm being led by somebody, a teacher or a coach. So that became kind of what made sense to me. And I go through high school and I decide I want to go to college, and I go to my mom and I do the whole, hey, I want to go to college. And she's like, we don't have any money. But then one of my coaches were like, well, if you do X, Y, Z, I can get you a college scholarship. I go do that. I end up going to junior college. Wasn't big enough to go to the big colleges to begin with. I play the first year, I do well. I get some scholarships to some schools. A new coach comes in and he says, hey, and this is where my life starts to make these pivots, Marcus, that we'll see as the story unfolds. So after my first year of junior college on a scholarship, I had another scholarships to 4-year schools, which is why the reason you go to junior college. But the new junior college coach coming in, because I had 2 in those 2 years, came in and said, hey, look, I see your talent. And if you do this, and this, I will get you a scholarship like at the next level, at the Florida State, Nebraska, Ohio State, Iowa, into that category. And I said, I couldn't live without at least taking that shot. I do what he says. I just put my head down, because there's the 2 things that we can control, attitude and effort. And I was guided by his plan, playbook, coach, and my teammates. And as such, I do what he said, and I show up. I get a full ride, University of Iowa. I'm there. I'm playing football. I go through school. Life's going well. Football was more of a means to an ends for me. It was my job to pay for my schooling. I decided I really don't want to play football anymore. And I graduated University of Iowa. I turned down the pros. I didn't go run for them, didn't go to combine. I said, hey guys, I don't want to do this anymore. I go home and Chuck Long calls me. Chuck Long, for those of you guys who are really into football, was the Heisman runner-up to Bo Jackson, right? And he called me up. He was one of my coaches at Iowa and said, hey, Derek, as your mentor and as your friend, I'm going to tell you that this is one opportunity in life. You just have to fly out to Minnesota. You have to fly back here to Iowa. You have to run for these pros. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and you'll be able to live with that. But but if you don't do it, you may regret this. So I said, all right, coach, like, I trust you. I trust my coaches. I get on a plane. I go out there. It works out, and draft day comes, and I'm a Detroit Lion. I go to Detroit, and I go in as this undrafted free agent, and quite honestly, like, people are like, man, it's so cool you played in the NFL. I was like, dude, like, whatever, like, the worst guy that was like barely hanging on, like, I was that guy, right? I was the guy that was like, I'm holding on by my fingertips trying to stay in this league because everybody else is the superhumans, and I'm like the average Joe that they must have slid through a roster and nobody recognized. The season goes on, and I find myself pivoting from being like the undrafted free agent, four-string tight end to barely make the roster to starting, because you don't know what life's coming. You don't know what happens. Life pivots. Injury. Boom. Derek, yeah, get in the game. You're starting. First game I had significant playing time was a late Sunday night game. I had eaten a full pizza and 12 wings in the locker room because I only run down on kickoff and punt. And now all of a sudden I'm in every play. And the whole time, like, I'm throwing a pizza on the field, thinking to myself, like, I clearly didn't think this through. So the season goes on. We get to about 4 games left, and I'm running down on kickoff. And that was when we could do wedge breaking. And I dive with my forehead, and my forehead goes right. My body goes left. Big snap happens, and I break my neck. I didn't know my neck was broken. I just thought I broke my shoulder because all the pain was out there in my arm. And that was back in the days when, like, you can't make the club if you're sitting in the tub. And if you talk about injury, you're cut. And especially a guy like me. Like, I wasn't Barry Sanders. I wasn't Herman Moore. I wasn't Johnny Morton, Scott Mitchell. I wasn't those guys. I was the guy that and this is funny, Marcus, because this is still my life to this day. This is the curse of being an NFL athlete that wasn't the best guy. Oh, wow, you played for the NFL? Like, which team? Detroit. Oh, what year? I was there in, like, 96, 97. They're like, what's your name? And you tell them, and they go, yeah, I never heard of you. Like, well, I never heard of you either. Like, come on, man. Like, you just popped my balloon right in my own life. Anyway, so I have a big injury. I don't tell anybody, and I'm playing at every game. My last game's at Candlestick, 49ers. I'm going head-to-head with Ken Norton Jr. We're just smashing faces. My arm's going numb. Things are just terrible. We get on the plane. We're flying home. Season's over. We didn't make the playoffs. And I deny having any injuries. They send me a contract in the offseason, multi-year, sign it, big contract. Like, all right, now this is the takeoff. I come back to camp, walk in, and they're immediately like, what is wrong with you? You're 270 pounds with a 19-inch right arm and a 12-inch left arm. So all the nerves and stuff going to my left arm, trap, and shoulder had just everything died. Emergency surgery, plates and screws. I come back to the team, and Bobby Ross pulls me in the office and says, we love you. You did great. We're going to honor your contract. You can ride it out. You can travel around with us for the next, like, 2 years. You don't get to play, but, this is your dream, and you earned it, and you're a good kid. Or you can do whatever you want. And I said, hey, coach, I really appreciate it. I'm not an entourage guy. Life pivot. I'm not doing this anymore. So if I can't play, I don't want to be here, right? And as such, I jettison back to Arizona, and it was actually the spine surgeon that I saw in California who fixed my neck, who I was in the waiting room with Shaquille O'Neal. And if you ever want to know what, like, feeling like a very small human being is just you and Shaquille O'Neal for about an hour in conversation. It's like this. And when he shook my hand, he just took my forearm, and I like gave him my arm, say, yes, sir. Anyway, when the guy was doing the surgery, he looked at my neck and he goes, hey, Derek, your neck, should look like a curve like this, but your neck was like this. So when you got hit, it just broke instead of just going with the flow. And you should have gone to a chiropractor, of which I didn't know anything about chiropractic. Said to the guy, yeah, right. Was he going to chiropractor? Was he going to, like, put chicken blood on my forehead, maybe a crystal in my ear, and chant some music over me and get my voodoo out, whatever? And dude, I'm talking about, this is a world-class surgeon. Looks at me and goes, that is the most ignorant statement I've heard all day. And just walked out of the room. And, like, I can tell you the cologne he was wearing, the shirt color, my shirt color, where I was sitting, what the room looked like. Like, it was that profound of a moment for me, Marcus. So that as soon as Bobby Ross said, you don't get to play this game anymore, and I go back to Arizona on a Sunday flight, on Monday morning, I drove to the nearest chiropractor I could find and walked in his office and said, what do you guys do? 30 days later, I'm in chiropractic school. So that's where the initial run up goes from. And now from chiropractic school, and I know we only got a 20-minute episode here, but I opened up a chiropractic clinic. I use mentors and coaches to build. I vertically integrate. I get to where I'm pretty much doing everything in medicine: ortho, pain, spine, surgery centers, the DMEs, the whole thing. Like I've been there, done it, and I have the opportunity to kind of exit and move away from it a little bit, because I wanted to go into coaching, because during this time I developed some new business lines and some new interests, which I really like to give back in the SEAL Fit community and some of these coaching opportunities I'm sure we'll talk about. And so I kind of exit and step out, and my very first coaching consulting gig is for a hospital called American Addiction Centers, which is a big publicly traded national hospital chain that treats mental health and addiction. And they said, hey, we got our crown jewel of Desert Hope up in Vegas is just broken. Can you come fix it? And I go up there and have the conversation, and literally a half hour in, the guy just stops and says, what does it take for you to be the CEO of my hospital? And I said, well, I've never done CEO administrative hospital work. I'm a chiropractor. I don't even know what behavioral health and addiction is. It's totally foreign to me. He goes, doesn't matter. I recognize talent. You're a leader. You're going to get it, and you want to help people. You're my next CEO. Sounds like a challenge. Let's go. Life pivot. I go down that road. I run it very, very well, very successfully for the next 4 years, and get an opportunity to get headhunted by Acadia Healthcare, which is the largest pure play in the world when it comes to mental health and substance abuse. And now I'm an expert because I sat in the chair as a CEO. So they asked me to come be the CEO of their crown jewel. And that's really where this story of why we're here in Faction Foundation take off, is that I do that for a year, and I had a big life pivot. And I'm gonna throw it back to you, Marcus, before I hog the microphone too much, and we can talk about like how I got to the decision there.
Yeah, no, I love this. I'm really excited to jump into this pivot, and I think you set the stage really well for people to see just the track record. Before we jump into your new community and coaching platform, the Faction, I want to dissect a couple things that you said that I think are really interesting. As you know, our listenership, our community in the whole enchilada and the Enchilada Nation are a lot of entrepreneurs that are high drivers. They're seeking the most out of life. And in some element, I'm pretty sure they saw themselves in your story, not in the NFL, maybe not becoming a chiropractor and working their way up to the CEO in the health space, but there's just elements of your story that I think a lot of our people can resonate with. That I jotted down a couple. The couple that I thought was really interesting is how many times you said your coaches came back to you at different stages of your life and said, hey, you can't quite see it, but there's this opportunity in front of you, and it's yours if you do this, and this, right? And you said this a couple times, which is it took somebody with a little different foresight that saw your life and your opportunity differently than you, that could say, hey, I see this for you, and here's the pathway to do it. And that's all it took for you a couple times to say, oh, well, if it's now that I see the pathway to it, you just put your nose to the grindstone and went and did those things. Any further comment on that? I thought it was interesting that came up 3 or 4 times at different stages of your progression as you just outlined your history.
It became, and this is the hardest part for probably a lot of your listeners right now, is that if you haven't used coaching, and if coaching wasn't, like if you didn't come up as an athlete, right? And maybe, and when you play the professional level of athlete, it just means you did it for longer, right? You did it longer. Or Marcus, you and I are both jiu-jitsu practitioners. Like I seek coaching because I don't think I'm above it. I think there's always something to learn. And I've had a lot of conversations with people that kind of are like, oh, coaching, like I don't need that, right? I don't need that. All right, well then I should call Barry Sanders and tell him he doesn't need a running back coach. And I should call Usain Bolt and be like, what are you doing with a track coach? And I should call Warren Buffett and be like, well, who's your financial coach? Like, get rid of these guys. You don't need them. And the reality is, like, the best in the world stay open to coaching, because the best in the world are the best at the basics, and they know that they don't know everything, but the people around them, they do. And so with me, I found space and comfort and a lack of stress with coaching. I found that if I showed up with and this goes from Little League baseball, Little League soccer, high school sports, track, football, jiu-jitsu, SEAL Fit, Ironmans. I've done 50 plus, triathlons. I had coaches for that too. I found that when I use a coach, I have to show up two things: attitude, effort. And the right coach will have the plan, the playbook that I orchestrate and live within, the coach that lives over the top. And then the big bonus is the team. And I think a lot of us in solo life don't remember what it was like when we were on a team. Like Marcus, you played high school sports, I played sports. And there came a day when like that game was over for you and you were off the train, whether you retired, you got injured, or you just timed out. And you look back on, you're like, those are my glory days. It wasn't your glory days because how many points you scored or how many home runs or touchdowns or pins or whatever. It wasn't your glory days. It was your glory days because you had a group of people that were doing the same thing. You had a tribe that had each other's back, where iron sharpens iron. Accountability is real. You had a reason to get up at 6 a.m, that was bigger than you. Like, I'm doing this for my team and my brothers. And when you find that camaraderie and you taste it, you can't ever untaste it. It's kind of like, like not getting too crazy, but it's kind of like finding God. Like when you find God, you can't unfind it. You know what I mean? Like when you feel the love of a newborn, when you look in your baby's eyes for the first time, I can't tell you what that is, but I can never undo that from like my imprint. And when you find coaches that speak in a team that holds you in that certain space and gives you that feel that all you have to do is give me your right good attitude and effort, and we got you. Like, that's what we miss when we leave, right? And that's what I found. And that's why I always looked for coaching in teams.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we talk about those two things like they're almost separate, but they're so intermixed of a good coach in relation to the tribe or community in which you're a part of. And you keep bringing up this idea of attitude and effort. And notice that it's a great coach is never going to expect perfection from you, but your best effort. And that's why a community is so important, because sometimes if your individual best effort isn't enough, being in part of a tribe is their effort, their combined effort closes the gap around you. But if a member of that tribe isn't putting forth the effort, it affects the tribe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I mean, think of a sports team. Like, you're on defense, you blow your coverage. Your guy that you're supposed to cover, you tripped, you fell down, but like your boys have your back and they stopped the play from happening. Wasn't their responsibility before the play started to do that, but they saw their teammate couldn't keep up with what needed to be done. They all have one mission, one goal, and they rally for each other. And it's that the military guys, it's that the high level athletes, that when we leave, we lose a little bit of that identity because we had that team bigger than self. We didn't have that individual. Well, most of us, we have that team feel. And then one day you're just off that train and that train just keeps going. So it's hard to find that identity, man. It's hard to find that tribe. And Marcus, you and I found it in CrossFit 15 years ago. Yep. You and I find it today in jiu-jitsu. You and I found it in SEAL Fit doing a 50-hour crucible and triathlons and marathons. And we just surround ourselves with it continually.
Hey, Enchilada Nation, if you are enjoying this conversation, please, who do you know that you can share this episode with today that will find value in it and would also like to join us on our journey to become the best version of ourselves? And don't forget, please like and subscribe, because this helps me get in front of more people just like you to continue to grow our network and our Enchilada Nation. Thanks again. Let's get back to the episode. So here's the question. I want to shift our conversation a little bit, because if I was building a resume for you off of your intro, right? It's I succeeded, I got the next opportunity. I succeeded in that opportunity, the next opportunity presented itself. Almost textbook to some element of somebody that worked their way up from I was choosing between Christmas presents and heat to I'm the CEO of one of the largest hospitals, mental health hospitals in the country, and doing really well in that position. I mean, not only winning there, but being sought after for how are you doing so well. And you would think that that's kind of the pinnacle. Somebody looking at your resume from the external is like, oh, this person's made it. There's nowhere else to go. Yet something in your brain triggered you to say, wait, something's not right in my world. I'm going to make a shift. Walk us through kind of how you made this recent shift. Because when you called me one day and said, hey, I just flipped my whole life over. Like I felt that quick gut punch for you, and then I was like, oh, knowing Derek, this actually makes sense to me. So walk us through
Well,
that shift of what happened in your world.
yeah, I want to make sure that your listeners understand that I didn't pick up the phone and just arbitrarily call. I called a select group of people that I believe create a pond where I'm a smallest fish. And this isn't, I know, Marcus, I'm gonna give you credit and you're gonna say no, 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 but I surround myself with groups that make me the smallest fish, because when I become the biggest fish, I don't want to be in that pond anymore. There's nothing to learn. I called you, I called Chris Smith, I called Brian Kontosh, I called like some Navy SEAL guys, I called some pro athlete guys, I called just some really good friends, I called Will Grimes, I called a lot of guys. And to a man, it went like this. Oh, right on. Dude, that's good. What are you gonna do now? Nobody was like, oh no, I'm worried for you, any of them. But so that was the beauty of it. Now, how did I get here? Okay, I'm cruising along. I'm making more money than I can spend. They're putting me on stage literally all over the world. I'm in Europe. I'm all over the place. I'm talking about mental health. I'm on stage. I'm dancing at the end of the strings. I'm the killer whale at SeaWorld doing flips for fish, right? I'm on stage, I'm talking, I'm figureheading, I'm on podcasts. The business is doing very well. Like my teams are doing well. I'm doing what I need to do, training them, etc. And it becomes complacent and very easy for me. And then like the universe threw this thing at me. A good buddy of mine, David Powell, you and I both know him. David Powell had the opportunity to exit a very large business and did very, very well for himself. And we had the opportunity to go down and speak. He called me up and he said, "Hey man, I'm kind of dragging like my purpose. I made all the money on planet Earth. I bought the house, the boat, the cars, the watches, the da 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 da, and if I get up in the morning or if I don't get up in the morning, nothing's different. I have more money than I can spend now. Like, how do you find purpose?" And I was like, "Man, that's a really interesting question." So had the opportunity to fly down to Florida with my wife and my daughter because she was doing dance nationals for Highland High School here. Dave's out of Georgia, so he grabs his wife Tammy, meets us down there, and we go into we get like this big suite, and in and out of my daughter's dances, we have time to spend together, and I do this like world-class coaching. And I'm like, "Dave, here's the deal, man. Like, money is not your driving object, so I'm gonna give you like 4 rules that I need you to follow. Number 1, whatever you do next has to be your passion. And it doesn't matter what it is, but you have to follow and pursue passion. Period. End of story. Passion, passion, passion. Number 2, you got to do it with people that you love and people that you want to be around, nobody that you have to be around. Bring your people that you love and that you want to be around. Number 3, you're in a position now to be impactful. So whatever that you're passionate about it and the people that you bring along that you love, just make sure that in some variant, some degree, it changes the world and leaves it a little bit better. Be impactful. So those 3 things: passion, people you love, change the world, be impactful. And I said, in far away number 4, Dave, is if it generates revenue, if there's an ROI, if you make money, great. And if it doesn't, who cares? You have more money than you can spend the rest of your life anyway. So do those 4 things. And Marcus, what I saw was a human being that showed up where the glass was half empty, to a human being that I left as the glass is half full. It was a mindset shift, right? I didn't tell him like all the keys to the universe, just a mind shift, perspectives, different goggles. And we're flying home. I'm sitting in 17A, like I still remember it, Southwest. I have my leg room, empty space. My wife's sitting next to me. I'm doing this and I'm typing because I got to get my EBITDA report in for the board and the shareholders and all that kind of stuff. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, like, it was so amazing. You talked to Dave and it really just changed him. I really saw you do your coaching," because she doesn't really see it that often. "And I really saw this person go from here and just come back, and now he's here. Like, wow, you must feel really good. That was amazing. Good job." And I was like, "Oh, I love you. Like, Heather's my best friend." "Yeah, thanks, babe. That was great." Earbuds back in, typing. Tap, tap. "What's up?" She's like, "Where are you at with your passion on this, by the way?" And I was like, "Oh, we're doing good. I'd make a lot of money. We're good." Remember when I go back to this? I couldn't unthink that question. And a day turns into a couple days. And I start thinking about, like, am I passionate about what I'm doing, or am I very comfortable with my situation? And those are two totally different things. And we lie to ourselves as men and pretend that one is the same. I'm making a lot of money. Do you love it? No. Would you do it if you weren't getting paid? Absolutely not. That means you don't love it. Now, in fairness, sometimes we just have to do what we have to do to put bread on the table. So for anybody that's like, hey, we can't all jump out of the airplane without a parachute. Man, I get that. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you what I did. But I was in a position where I said, I can do this for the next 10 years of my life with about 20% of my effort, because I've set everything up. I just have to show up, don't screw it up, maintain. Complacency breeds comfort. I'm very comfortable. I can do this next 10 years, get my gold watch, walk away, be done. I said, I just don't think my book ends that way. So I went in and talked to him at work. This is within 5-6 days afterwards. I said, I don't do this anymore. And they're like, you don't do what anymore? I'm like, I'm not your guy anymore. And we did the whole, like, well, maybe it's money and maybe it, like, play that game. I said, hey, listen, it's just, I love you. You guys have been great to me. I'll do whatever you want. I just don't do this anymore. Because what I had realized was my passion was the reason that I became a chiropractor and found my passion was that I found purpose in that I could help somebody. And I could sit knee to knee with somebody, like I'm sitting with you right now, Marcus, and I could say, hey man, tell me what's going on, bring me onto your team, and how can we together collaborate to solve your situation? Back pain, neck pain, headaches, digestion, whatever it is. Sometimes I help, sometimes I make a referral. But that was my passion, was that gave me that spiritual satiety. And as my health career advanced, I went from where I saw the patients to then I brought in other doctors. They saw the patients, and I coached the doctors. And then the doctors that I coached, I started running the business and owning the business and so on and so forth. And I found at the end of my career, I was on the corporate side and I wasn't playing for the patient anymore. I was playing for the shareholders. And my success and my bonus and my checks didn't have anything to do with the experience that the patients are getting. It had to do with, could I cut lunches from $11 down to $10? Can I cut the laundry room spend from $2,400 a month to $2,000? Could I hold raises? Could I suspend invoices at different ends of quarter? And ultimately, how do I make sure that the stock and the board are being successful? I got so far away from the patient that I said, I am not living passion. I'm going to go back to it. And I don't know what it is, but this is comfort. And so I walked away. And the very first person I called was my wife. Now, I want everybody that's listening to this to ponder this for a second. Let's pretend you're in my situation. You walk out on just a random Monday and call your wife and go, hey, you don't do this job anymore. She's like, no, seriously. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm driving home right now. I just decided I'm not going to do this anymore. She was like, oh, okay. Like, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. We'll figure it out. She's like, all right, well, do you want to go out to lunch and talk about it? I said, let's do that. And that was it. Boom and boom, right? Like, but Marcus, that's not normal. But that's because, like, my whole life has been, when I work with coaches and within a framework, I trust that it's going to work out. And so, like, I look at you, Marcus, as one of my mentors and coaches. I look at Chris Smith. I look at Will. I look at, I can list off 25 names. David, the man I talk to, is one of my coaches. And what I consider a coach are the people that are in my inner circle. If you're in my inner circle, you're my coach, because I'm here to learn from you as much as you are from me. And so I called my coaches. I called you guys. Hey, what should I do? Marcus, you're like, dude, I think you should develop a coaching situation. I was like, man, you and everybody else said that same thing. I guess that's what we're going to do. And then you and I talked about, what should it look, taste, touch, feel? Like, how do we make sure it's ethically and morally on point? We're not ripping people off, and we're coaching from our heart, and we're coaching something that actually moves the needle. And I will say that everyone around my round table threw their recipes on the table, man, threw their ingredients. And I am where I am right now because I have a loving and supporting team and tribe that I've collected of coaches that I surround myself with.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think you do have a different recipe. I think that, unfortunately, early on in my career, it was like only the elite entrepreneurs, the elite business owners had coaches. It was almost like a sign of success that you had a coach. And then I feel like the industry in general, the world in general, has been oversaturated with coaches. and all coaches are not created equal. Like it's unfortunately, I feel like there's a lot of coaches out there that were like, particularly you look in the real estate world, for example, from where I come, is a lot of agents that saw how hard it would be to be a really great agent were like, oh, well, I'll just be a coach. That seems easier than being a real estate agent. I'm like, well, how can you be a great coach if you haven't been able to succeed in the role, right? So I feel like there's a lot of coaches that honestly should not be coaches, which dilutes people from actually getting in touch with the right coaches. And it was an easy call for me for when you and I were talking of like, Derek, people need great coaches out there. They need what you're about. So I want to talk about that for a second. Like, what in your mind, what makes a great coach? And specifically with the faction, which is your community, your tribe, your coaching platform, like what is it that sets it apart? Like, what's the goal with that?
Sure. Well, I'm going to echo your comment. There's no shortage of coaches. Just get on internet, and heaven forbid you go to Instagram and type in the word coach, because now that's all your reels are. But
Yeah.
there is no shortage of people selling smoke in place of substance. And I just say you have to look at the reality of who it is that you're talking to, read their resume, read their story, because there's somebody for everybody. There's a coach for everybody. And I'm not the coach for everybody on planet Earth, but if you want to know about what I coach, so I'll go there. Faith, family, fitness, finance, in that order, and specifically and intentionally in that order. Faith. Everything that guides me, my lane lines, my moral compass, my North Star is centered around my faith. Am I the best practitioner of my faith? Absolutely not. Am I struggling as much as anybody else is? 100%. But do I have a faith that I try and steer, and I keep my rudder tilted towards that direction and bounce my decisions in life off of? 100%. Has it done well for me so far? I'm going to say abundantly so. And I give all the praise above to where it comes from. That being said, at the faction, my faith and your faith don't have to be the same. You see, it's not up to me to tell you what to believe. It's not up to me to tell you what your favorite dessert is, what your favorite song is. It's not for me to give you a size 12 shoe and say fit into it, right? It's for me to say, I live within my faith and I would love to share it with you. But what I really want for you is that warm feeling, that satiety that I get, that makes me know that there is something bigger than this. There is more out there than just what's happening today. And it makes me less of an a-hole when I follow faith, because I feel like I'm kind of under the microscope and I want to be example. So I coach faith. That being said, think of a head coach. I'm a head football coach. I coach faith in its biggest picture. But if you were to say, I just want a faith coach that's going to drill down, we're going to Bible study every day, or study the Quran, or study the Torah, whatever it is, man, there's way better guys than me. But if you were looking for somebody that keeps that balanced table, like think of a table, 4 legs, faith is one of my tables. Second table for me, or second pillar that holds that table up, is my family. Now, family for me is nuclear. Wife, 3 daughters. I have a wife that needs me, doesn't just want me, right? And wants me and doesn't just need me. Meaning, Marcus, you and I know a lot of guys with a lot of money, and their wives need them to sustain their lifestyle, but they don't really want them. Their kids love the presents that they get, but they can't remember the interactions. Test for all of you. Hit pause on this. Go talk to your kid about what do you get for the last Christmas, what do you get for the birthday before that, and go back 2 more birthdays. Ask them to just name one present. The answer is going to be, I don't remember. Then say, run it back to a vacation we took 5 years ago. What was the funnest thing you had? They'll tell you where you were, what you were wearing, what you were eating, what the temperature was, and what happened. Here's the secret code to family. They want you present. They want you time. That's it. So my version of family is my wife and my kids. But Marcus, you're my brother. I love you. Like, as a man, I can say that openly now. Like, I love Marcus Green because of what he brings into my life and enriches me with. That's hard to do, is like when you're trying to be a big alpha and beard and tattoos and we fight all the time. But family to me is the people that you surround yourself with that make you want to be better. right? And we all have a different version of that. That's what I coach over there is the intentionality family. Fitness. Dude, I've played in the NFL. I've done every marathon and Ironman you can think of. Like, I'm a jiu-jitsu instructor. Like, I know fitness. I'm a doctor. Like, I'm a doctor of fitness. Like, I know how to do the fitness side. And I break fitness into two categories, physical and mental. Like, it's one thing to be like, man, look at my biceps and my run time and my heart rate and my body fat. Cool. Where are you at mentally? Where are you at with anxiety and depression? Where are you at with OCD and bipolar? Where are you at with PTSD, about emotional trauma? Have you unloaded that? Because on the outside, you can be ripped and tan and gym tan laundry and look like $1 million. And on the inside, you're dying because you don't know how to unpack something that's happened to you or that you did, right? And then at the very last, and intentionally at the very last, I coach finance because money does make the world go around, and we're lying to ourselves if we say it doesn't. Nobody ever said, I'm so pissed that I have all this money to pay my bills with. It's usually not a comment I hear. But in the order of priority of life, I've kind of taken that where like we chase the dollar and we leave the faith to like Sundays or Easters or Christmas. I said, well, what if we recalibrated and said, let's lead by faith. Let's put intention into family, making that the most important thing. And then let's make sure our fitness, both physical and mental, sustain that pyramid and make me impactful in this world. Oh, and then let's make sure that we're making enough money and scaling our businesses and running things to do things appropriately. Because I'm going to tell you a secret. If you want to make more money, it's not that you don't know this magic sales script. It's not that you don't know the magic algorithm to business. It's that you need to become a better person, a person that wants to be around other people. I'll show you realtors that are just hyper charismatic. They probably know how to do a contract and they're crushing. And I can show you guys that are AI smart that have no business. Be a better person. Be empathetic. Learn to listen. Do all that kind of stuff. So Marcus, very specifically, I do the medical side, like a deep assessment at the beginning. I quantify from each one of those categories a very tight point score, just like a weight loss journey. I come up with a very significant plan. I'll give you a playbook, which you know I've given you the book that gamifies the intentionality of earning points. Once a week, you show up in what we call the huddle. I hold you accountable just like a locker room. You either got your points or you didn't. If you did, high five. If you didn't, we're going to talk about it. Then I go into the price principle. Like, hey, take this lesson, apply it. Here's your homework through the week for you to like see the world maybe a little bit differently. But here's the magic, man. And this is what's different. I may be the head coach of the faction, but for those of you guys listening, Marcus has coached on the faction as much as I have, as have the other 40, 50, 60 other members in the faction right now. We just started because we bring a locker room. So when we talk about something, we go around the room and pull from doctors, lawyers, engineers, surgeons, pilots, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, like movie celebrities. I want to hear their opinions. I want to hear like, hey, Marcus, I had this, I'm teaching this thing about empathy and aptitude, and this is how I see it. How do you see it? And when Marcus gives me his intel, we as a whole group get better. So in this coaching environment, you're not just getting me. You're getting a room full of legitimate high-level coaches that I have to say transparently, it's because I called Marcus and said, Marcus, can you please join my group? I need your bandwidth. I need your power. Along with, as you've seen, Marcus, 30 or 40 other people in my world. And now when people show up to these, they're like, dude, that's a really, really, really powerful room. I'm like, yeah, if you had to pay to get in that room, it's almost unaffordable. But the way that we do it makes it work.
Yep. Yeah, it was the conversation in the huddles have been really good. And these, obviously I know you and your background and I know what our conversation is, but there's been several times in those conversations that somebody I'm meeting for the first time makes a comment that I'm like, one, I see you, they're vulnerable, they're sharing. And then two is like, oh, that's applicable to what I'm going through right now. There's some real power in that huddle conversation. So let's start wrapping up our conversation here about this. One is I'm so excited about your journey. I've told you several times. I love checking in on you too about like how things are going and the momentum that you're getting behind it. I'm sure is just a confirmation for you that you're chasing your calling, that you're on the right path now, and it's fun to see that momentum at your back. You deserve all that success. And I think that word calling is interesting. It's as we go through this for our listeners today, is the question I would really have you ask yourself is, all of us are busy. I know how hard, like the people in my community and my network are some of the most hardworking, good people I know. The question is are you working hard on the right things? Are you really in the pocket of chasing your calling? And to Derek's point earlier is sometimes we have to do things that maybe aren't in alignment with our exact calling to keep food on the table and take care of our families. But do you have clarity on your calling and a pathway to spending your time and energy on the thing that really is your God-given purpose on this planet? So Derek, what would be like one or two quick things for someone to like go introspective and slow down for a minute to say, am I in the right pocket? Like, have I identified my calling on this planet?
Yeah, the first thing I tell everybody, Marcus, is evaluate your circle. You are who you're among, right? So hard pause, look around. If you're around grumpy people, you're probably a grumpy person. Find a circle that makes you uncomfortable. Find a circle where you feel like you have to work to keep up, because you will grow into that space, and that is growth. Always pursue growth, but be realistic, guys. 1% growth is what you're hoping to achieve. So whatever it is that you've done, and whatever it is, the margin of that experience that lives out there in the ether, find a way to get 1% beyond that. And once that becomes comfortable, go 1% beyond that. Continual growth. And lastly, is be open. Be open to advice, be open to opinion, be open. And the way that I best do that is, I had to learn this. This is very hard for me. Is I will tell you, all of you guys, if you're listening to this podcast, I know this isn't like a science fiction show, so you're trying to find human development and make yourself better. You're investing in yourself by listening to this right now. So I'll leave you with this one thing. Learn how to communicate by starting with empathy and intention. Means that I don't want to just push my words onto somebody. I don't want to say, can't you hear me? Why don't you understand me? And just get louder and more forceful. We as leaders, and most likely the people on this call, we suffer from that, whether it's with our wife, our kids, or our coworkers, or our friends. But try this. Marcus, I think you and I are totally different on our alignment on how we think about this, but will you help me understand why it's so important to you? Because like, I respect you as a person. This seems to be very important for you. I don't understand it, but like, walk me through it. I want to see this through your eyes. And when you do that, you create space, because Marcus has a certain amount of words and references and bullets. He's ready for loaded for bear. And when I let him get his words out, when I come in without having that defense where I'm not attacking him, and I come walk alongside him and say, help me understand. Now that leaves space for conversation. Now, as the alpha, it is your job to conform to the people that you need to communicate with. It's not their job to conform to you. You're not.
Yeah, great advice on that. And I just really encourage everyone to slow down right now and ask yourself the question of like, do I love what I'm doing? Do I love the direction I'm going? And maybe there's some elements of it that you do love, but I think taking the opportunity to clarify that a little bit could reinvigorate your excitement around that. And then to your point, like that tribe of being around the right people, as you get more and more successful, it gets harder and harder to identify your real tribe of people that want to contribute, because a lot of times the people that are attracted to you need or want something from you, but don't have something to contribute back. So be really aware of that. The only other comment I'd make on that is following people on social media that you aspire to be or want to be like isn't enough. That's good input for support, but you need to be part of a community, a tribe where there's input and output, where you're contributing back and forth and growing together with them, which is really a challenge to do just following people, reading books, watching podcasts, those type of things. So Derek, if anyone in my community is interested in learning more about the faction, about getting involved in the huddles, following you on social media, what is the best way for them to follow you?
Well, the easy one is the website, thefactionfoundation.com. My Instagram's probably number 2, and that's just at Derek Price. What I suggest is, I may not be the right key for your lock, but give me a chance. Let's get on a conversation. Let's have a talk. Let me explain what we do. I do things in 90-day runs. We measure at the front. We go 90 days. We measure in the back. If it was a success, we talk about going on. Maybe we finished it. Maybe it didn't work for you, but put your toe in the water. And here's the deal, guys. To Marcus's point, it doesn't matter what you read, doesn't matter who you follow, it matters what you do. So don't talk about things, get about things. Don't talk about it, be about it. So whether it's me, which I'm humbled, thank you, call me, come join me, get a conversation, but find somebody and never think that you're above coaching, man. Never think that.
Love it. All right, Enchilada Nation. Hopefully you got some insight, some wisdom from this conversation. I know I did. I'd love taking little bullet points from every conversation of these episodes, and I'm hoping you're doing the same. I just encourage you to take a moment, slow down, and ask yourself the question, have you identified your calling on this earth? And almost equally important to identifying what your calling is, do you have the courage to go follow that calling? And I know you do. I know you do. Go make it happen. Proud that you're part of this community and following it. Derek, thanks again for being here. Enchilada Nation, don't forget, go live life on your terms.